Hey Renzo, how are you?
Hey, Jeshuri. Good, good. Looks like Tiffany's not on. I've
Maybe
been here
you're
since
coming a little bit. I don't know.
yeah, I came on to see the how to use Remine Pro for
Yeah,
Bright.
I don't even know what that is, but yeah.
It's I believe it's something to use with the MLS, Bright MLS.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, it's something that it's a program in there. So I wanted to see
Oh,
because I'm not sure how to use too much the MLS yet, other than
great. Yeah, that's what I'm still, that's same place. Yeah, I am too. So how is everything going with your calling and everything? Any luck? You have a big circle though, right? Friends in circle also?
Yeah, for my sphere, yeah, I guess I mean that was going well. I mean, I haven't really been making too many calls for that, but I started doing the neighborhood,
Oh,
and
great. Okay.
yeah, I started doing the neighborhood calls. And I mean, most of the numbers that I got that Tiffany had sent us, most of them were going to like it was saying it's like a wrong number, like it wasn't working anymore.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, but then some of them were ringing, some of them didn't answer. I actually just got a call back from one of them that I had called,
Great.
and I told them, like, oh yeah, I was just that I'm their local real estate agent, and if there's anything I could help with them. And the one guy was like, how could you help me? Like, what are you gonna do? And I was like, oh, I was just saying, like, for example, picking up groceries because there's people that are not able to get out their homes. And then, so like, I realized he got a little bit upset. But then when I said that, he was like, oh, okay, well, yeah, I appreciate that. But at the moment, I'm good. I don't need
That was
anything.
nice. That's nice. Yeah. Yeah, like I was telling Tiffany earlier, all the buyers, like the Frisbos I was calling today, I called about like 20 people, but of which I think majority of them answered, but they're all like ready to sell by themselves. They're saying, yeah, you got a buyer, bring them. We are here, you can bring them. But nobody wants to budge from anything else. And I
Yeah.
asked about like, how she had thrown that other girl about that COVID addendum and all that. They said, yeah, yeah, we can get that. Don't worry about it and all. So they were
They
not
said
like,
that. They said that they know how to get it.
yeah. And I was like,
Uh,
how? They said, how? Then they said, oh, we know where to get it. I said, I didn't want to argue too much. So I just let it, I
yeah.
just let it be. And then I said, okay, but if you have any help and if you can schedule something, but all like I think they were already agents or they had just purchased as rental property. So they had like something that it's vacant. So
Mm-hmm.
they could just bring anybody anytime. All right,
Okay.
here's
That was
Stephanie.
expired.
No, Fizbos.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Got it.
All right, here's Tiffany. So let's see. So that was my luck today, but that's all right. It's bound to happen. Keep
Yeah.
calling, I guess. Yeah. I
Yeah. Just
called
keep
on that
calling.
red X that Tiffany had given, she had suggested. Oh, here we are. Okay.
Yeah, I'm just waiting for it to launch right now. Sorry. They had this set up a little bit differently, and I don't know why. All right, hold on 1 second. Oh, it's launching, 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 launching. Gotta love technology.
And sometimes it asks you again, but right now we're doing pretty good. And it brings you into the daily dashboard. This is usually the landing page of Remine. Remember, it's a third-party vendor. We go right to their website. Before I get started and dig into some of these things, I do suggest you go to remine.com. They have ongoing webinars. They have additional tutorials. And also they have a YouTube channel. They have about 30-something videos that are done not only by Remine, but they're also done by brokers and agents around the country who are giving tips and tricks on how to use the system too. So really, really worth your time to invest the next week or two to really learn how to use this tool and navigate with it. When you come onto the daily, now your page will look different than my page, I understand that, but you will notice as I scroll down, you have these things that are called cards, and they're all identified with different names. I went down to the very bottom, Market Pulse. This is sort of like a bright hot sheet, if you will. You will notice it has a zip code. When you click on that down arrow, you can enter any zip code you want. So I'll just type in another zip code, hit the enter bar, and I can do a 30-day market pulse, a 7-day market pulse, or a 1-day market pulse. Pick any zip code you want, and it's one zip code per card. Using these little dots, you can then, and gear, you can move it with the dots, and you can use the gear to duplicate cards. So you can make multiple cards with multiple zip codes. So this one, let's do 08540. Let's enter that. And now I have everything in this area for the last 30 days and or 7 days, etc. So it's sort of like an instant hot sheet giving you a status of things going on in the last 1 day, 7 days, or 10 days. You can play around with this. I don't spend a lot of time on the daily page. As I scroll up, you can attach your Twitter account. You can get all listing updates for specific zip codes using that drop-down arrow, entering a zip code. You can save searches. So all of the dashboard will give you property notifications, and your listings will all be downloaded automatically too. So you'll have an at a glance everything for your listings and your statuses. You can also invite clients, and when you do that, you can track the gross commission income that they have generated for you. You can invite clients, create a saved search, you can chat, and you can add multiple cards. So this is all on the dashboard. As I said, I don't spend a lot of time here, but at a glance, you can see what's going on when you log on. At the very top here, you can play weather person by clicking on the cloud and clicking on the gear. You can enter a zip code and see what's going on within that specific zip code while you are on the daily dashboard. Where we will spend most of our time will be in search and carts. What I suggest, just spend a little bit of time. Most of this is pretty self-explanatory. We just go through all of the different navigation bars along the side here. Here is their support center. When you click on support, click on the support center pop out, and you can ask questions. There are numerous training, help topics, articles on how to use just about everything you need to know. So once again, I'm on the daily dashboard, and I scroll down to support. Give me 1 second, please. Okay, so now the first thing I like to do, and I have a couple of ways of doing things, but I'm going to give you just my opinion. And I've been doing this long enough to know what sort of works and what sort of doesn't. So let's assume we want to get things that are working more than not. I think you'll all agree there. So the first thing I like to do is that I like to just build a cart. Now, what is a cart? After I do my searches, I'm going to manipulate the data by putting everything into a cart. So I'm going to concentrate right now on building a cart, and I'm going to call that cart, let's call that cart, let's just call it, I have one called Princeton, but you know what? I'm going to add another one. I hit the plus sign, and I want to call this one Princeton, and I'm just going to call it Princeton New, just because I want to just create a different cart. You'll notice I have different carts along my side here, and I'll show you what happens. I'll do that again for you if you missed it. But this one's called Princeton New. You will notice my cart Princeton New has been created, and here is what happened. So the very first thing, once I logged on, I was on the daily dashboard. The next step I wanted to do was build a cart for an area that I want to prospect. So I click on carts, and you'll notice these are the carts I've already created. I already have one called Princeton, but I want to show you for example purposes of how to start brand new. So this one is called Princeton New. This is a brand new cart that I entered and just called it Princeton New. So I've accomplished the first step, created a cart. And now I'm going to go back to search. When I click on search, it usually asks me to allow the location access, and I do that. Now, whatever your default is, you will have a totally different area than I do. Sometimes it comes in Baltimore, DC, Delaware, it doesn't really matter. By default, wherever you are looking will produce your results. So let's type in the address box at the very top. I'm just going to put Princeton in. So I'm going to type Princeton because we're going to start there. And as I type Princeton in, I get a drop down that says Princeton, New Jersey. So let's just click on that. And when I click on that, you will notice I'm getting results. It's spinning around and it's showing me this drop down. I want to get rid of this drop down. So the first thing I want to do is hide this. So anywhere in my white space, I just click on it and my drop down disappeared. Now it's giving me an outline and it's giving me over 8,000 results. Now I could zoom in here and say, what do these blue circles with numbers in them mean? Well, if I continue to zoom in, I will say, well, I'll see there's 4,000 properties here. There are 2,000 here, 866 here. So it's just giving me at a satellite view based on just this outline of how many properties are there. Now, when I get rid of this outline, let's say I want to look at the whole map, all I have to do is clear all filters, and it's going to get rid of this outline of Princeton. So let's clear the filters. I will have many more results. So let's see what happens. As I clear the filter, and the key here is anything I am viewing. Now, this isn't all of Princeton. In fact, you can see it's Pennington and West Windsor, etc. So I now want to collect a sample. What does that mean? I want to narrow down these results. 66,000 are way too many for me to start target marketing. So I have a couple of ways of zooming in to shrink that number. I can hit the plus sign. When I do that, it immediately gives me a closer view of the Princeton University Art Museum. I have 16,000 results. I can also use the wheel on my mouse. And as I'm zooming in, I have 6,495 results. Let's say I want to move the map a little bit and I want to be sort of over here. Maybe this is my farm area. Maybe this is a neighborhood I'm really interested in. So I moved it over and I have 3,361 results within the viewing area. So this is really important. It's the viewing area of my map that I'm concentrating on. It's not all of Princeton. It's not all of a zip code. It's just whatever I see here first. So I have 3,361 results. Now, the next thing I want to do is I want to kind of look at these filters, but I'm not going to touch them yet. I am looking for high probability sellers who may be interested in selling their property. So the first thing I do after I zoom in on kind of a result base, and by the way, this is completely arbitrary. Excuse me, I could pick 3,000, 2,000, 1,500, it doesn't matter. Just for this example, I happen to have 3,361 results. Excuse me, I'm gonna take a drink of water for 1 second. One more second here. Okay, great, thanks. Okay, so now I have 3,361 results. The first thing I want to do is click on status. And all I am concerned about are properties that are off market at the very bottom here. So I click on status. I went to off market. And when I check that off, let's see what happens to my results. Changed it a little bit by a couple of hundred. So I have 3,172 results of properties that are completely off market in this viewing area that I've selected. Remember how to get rid of this drop down, click anywhere in the white space, and that disappears. So for all intents and purposes, my first filter was Princeton. My second filter is off market. and I have 3,172 results. Now I'm going to start narrowing down on properties that are, let me just see one thing here, just curious. Okay, so now what I want to do is I want to look at some of these filters, these algorithms that are created by Remine to help me fine tune these numbers. So let's pick my first favorite one. And this is ownership time. If you can see me circling my cursor, what does that mean? That means that when I click on that algorithm, that filter, it's going to give me a pop-up that looks like this. It's going to give me ranges of ownership time. So I always ask this question in my classes, and it's a great question. What is the average national time frame when people start thinking of selling their home? Now, some people yell at 5 years, 7 years, 10 years, somewhere in that range, right? So I don't want to put a range in. I just want to put a minimum, and I'm going to arbitrarily pick 5 years. So that is going to be the first filter I apply to these 172 results of homeowners that have owned their property for a minimum of 5 years. So let's apply that filter of ownership time, and let's see what happens to that number of 3,172. It cut it down to almost by 1,000, 900 and change. So I have 2,228 results just by simply adding the next filter of ownership time of 5+ years. The next thing I like to do is make sure I'm not dealing with short sales. Now, some of you may not care about that. I don't particularly want to waste a lot of time dealing with people that don't have equity. So the next filter right above ownership time is home equity. So we can pick a range, but once again, I like to just say, you know what, how about if we picked 75,000? They have to have at least 75,000 minimum home equity. This does not mean a home equity line of credit. It means they have home equity, pure equity based on a valuation. We'll talk about that in a little bit. So we have a minimum of 75,000. Let's apply that to our 2,228 results. Let's see what happens to that number. The number now becomes a couple hundred less, 2,068 results. So we're doing pretty good. So as you begin to see, by applying these filters, usually shrinks the number, almost always, in fact. So now I have visibly 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, but I want to add a couple of more things. So I go down to my double arrows down below, and I see something that I particularly like using. It's called mortgage age. What does that mean? My thinking here is, I don't want someone who just refinanced in the last year, 2, or 3. If they've done that, the probability of them wanting to move is probably slim to marginal at best. So let's apply the mortgage age filter, and I'm going to arbitrarily, once again, just because I'll pick a number, 5 years. So when I click mortgage age, for the last 5 years, whatever my results will be, they haven't touched their publicly recorded mortgage for at least 5 years. So I apply that filter to my 2,067 results. I now have, look at that, pretty impressive. Cut that down to a third almost, 744 results. So I'm getting pretty much fine-tuned to people in Princeton in this my mapping area. Remember, only what I'm seeing here. They're all off market. They've owned their property for at least 5+ years. They have at least $75,000 in home equity, and they haven't touched their publicly recorded mortgage in 5 years plus. And I have 744 results. So now I'm going to go back up my little 2 arrows. I'm going back to what is called a cell score. Now, what is that? This is, I guess you want to call it Remine's secret sauce. In the cell score algorithm are some specific filters that will even fine-tune those 744 results even more in depth. And here are some of the things that I'm aware are in the cell score. Demographics of age of owners, demographic age of properties, financial demographics that are being pulled in from public records, and probably some other filters that they've created, possibly divorce, possibly obituaries. But when I add this cell score, look what happens. I click on it, I get a pop-up. I see high, medium, and low. Based on their statistical data, Remine is telling us the high sell score should produce a 0 to 6 month window time frame of people who are highly motivated. So the high sell score is 0 to 6 months high probability. Let's apply the high filter to my 744 results. Let's apply that filter. Let's see what that does to my numbers. Look at that. It knocked that down to 14 high probability sellers who could be selling within the next 0 to 6 months. Now, how many of these will it take to get paid a commission? Right now, you're thinking one, right? You got 14 chances here of high probability sellers. But I'm not happy with just 0 to 6 months. I want to increase my marketing funnel because right now I'm anxious. I want to give myself as many opportunities as I possibly can. So let's go back to that sell score and let's click on medium. Medium, based on the statistical analytics that Remine is telling us, should give us a 6 to 12 month time frame. So let's apply the medium sell score. Remember, high is 0 to 6 months and medium is 6 to 12 months. Let's see what happens to that original set we had. We applied those filters, the two filters now. We now come up with 47 potential prospects for the next 0 to 12 months that could be selling their properties. Will they all be selling? Who knows? But it doesn't take too many to really make this little marketing effort worthwhile and pay well. If you ever have done direct marketing, and I'm sure many of you pros have done that, you know statistically if you get 1/2 of 1% response rate, you're doing pretty well. This is going to give you a 30 to 55% chance of increasing your probabilities by just using these filters. So that I find is really exciting. So the next thing is we have 47 results. What do we do with them? Well, remember we created a card at the very beginning. I called it Princeton New, and that's pretty much what I want to do with these 47 results. But before I do that, let's just take a peek. All along the side will be the properties that have those sell scores. So let's just pick one. Here's one, and I just went down the side. There are 47 of them. I just clicked on one because I want to show you what consists of that. We will make it full screen. All right, here we go. So the first thing we see it's off market. We see the sell score is high. And the next thing I look at is right here, estimated equity. Remember, we put a minimum of 75,000. And the reason I said that was because number one, I want to make sure there's enough equity to get paid with. And number two, there's enough wiggle room if that marketing price is off. Well, this one's pretty impressive. I have $250,000 in estimated equity that their algorithms have pulled in from public records and other demographics that they're using. So we see the property. We can add this to a cart. We're going to do that in a little bit. Or we can share it. We can print it. We can actually run a full CMA right off of this property. So these are things you're going to want to play with. So as I scroll down, I see some key statistics. I see the features, the occupancy, the tax information. Here's something even more interesting. Interest rate, active mortgage. It's giving me the lender. It's giving me the percent of equity based on the valuation. And we'll talk about that in a moment. Some flood information, some FEMA map date information, valuation. How did they come up with this 357? When you click on that drop down, you're going to see it came in from 3 sources. The first one is First American Title, Black Knight Title, and Redfin. About 6 months ago, Zillow was one of the 3 or 4, but Zillow threatened to sue Remine. So Remine no longer uses Zillow. And if you know Zillow at all, they love to make friends everywhere they go. So they didn't want them pulling in their data. So the bottom line is we have some oddball range here. But once again, you do your detective work and your homework, and you can see how close this is. And if for some reason you think it's off and you want to even add a valuation, you can certainly do that. But that is where the number is coming from. So we have a 357 range. We've got certainly have enough equity to play around with this. And as we continue going below, we see schools. It's giving us all the schools, the elementary, the middle school, a high school, and it's pulled in from niche. It comes in once a year, I'm told, so that probably gets updated every so often, but let's say once a year. Additional demographics, college grads, average income, etc. under the demographics. The property history, when you keep scrolling down, is telling us some information here. This was originally listed at one point. And associated people, which is really interesting. So here we begin to see some names that are connected to the property. Sometimes you will see adult children who may have applied for credit, even though they're not on ownership information, they're in the property and it pulls it in. But I want to address your attention to the DNC. I think everybody knows that it means do not call. Do not do that. The latest statistics on the fine that could be imposed is $41,464 if litigation occurs. So that is an expensive seminar. You certainly don't want to attend, right? So don't call these. It does have email addresses, but I'm going to give you what I think is the most powerful way to do this. You can use your own methods, but I want to give you some ideas on that I've used. All right, so now we've got that. We've gone across, you can see all of these 47 properties. I just showed you where they are, but now we want to do something with them, right? We want to add those to the cart that I originally created called Princeton New. And I just called it Princeton New because I have another Princeton there. So let's select it, select all. Let me unselect it first. When you unselect it, you will see the button for cart, but you can't do anything when it's unselected. So what you have to do is select all 47 now, and then the cart button lights up. When I click on cart, it gives me a pop-up, and it's giving me the name of that Princeton New cart that I generated at the very beginning. So I want to add these 47 properties that I've narrowed in on to my Princeton New cart. So let's click on the Add 47 Properties, and lo and behold, here is what is happening at the top right. Success. 47 properties have been added to my Princeton New cart. So now, keep in mind, let's recap. I searched an area. I gave it a status my status, remember, was off market. I used the first filter was ownership time. They had to be there at least 5 years. And keep in mind, you can make it 7 years, you can, whatever you want to do. Home equity, I arbitrarily picked 75,000. Mortgage age, I picked 5+ years. Once again, they haven't touched a publicly recorded mortgage in 5+ years. And then I applied the self-score filters, the high and the medium, and that all came together and gave me 47 results. I selected them all. I added those into the cart that I created at the beginning, and then I go to my carts. So far these steps are pretty easy. Hopefully you get them. It's now loading all 47 properties that I've moved into my Princeton New cart. When I check all of these off, they're all there to do things with. So let's talk about a couple of things we can do from a marketing point of view. The first thing we can do, if you love Excel spreadsheets, and in some companies that I've worked with, they have their own proprietary spreadsheets that they like to export the data. You click on that tab, you create a cart. I'm just going to call this one Princeton New, and I'm going to export all of these fields, these columns, into that spreadsheet. So here's what's happening. Success. We'll notify you in a few minutes when your download is ready. So I've exported them, and I'm going to be notified under alerts. It's going to tell me in a few minutes that that Excel spreadsheet is ready to do whatever I want to do with. So that's the first thing under export. Now under send mailers, I know many of your companies have proprietary mailing companies within, and some of you don't. But here is what Remine has worked out with their third-party vendor. This is a Remine third-party vendor called Rocket Print and Mail. You can actually use their services by creating a campaign, and I'll just call this one Princeton New again, just because. And when I click on that, I will continue to Rocket Print and Mail, which is Remine's third-party vendor. It now takes me to their site, and you will see what they will do for you. They will, taking those properties that we have, they will print postcards. They will do, now remember we had 47 pieces They were the property we put to our cart. They will do different size postcards, all inclusive. They will do 47 pieces for $39.95 at 6 by 11 postcards. They will do letters, so you can upload your customizable letters. They'll do that for $39.48. They will do yellow letters, or they will do what are called snap-aparts. So they'll do all of these cool little things for this price. That includes everything. If you scroll down, you will be able to see the different types of letters, postcards, etc. And then, of course, you will contact them, and then you can personalize them and do whatever you want to do with them. That's the second choice. I'm still not on the choice that I like, but you've got two choices so far. Remember, we put them in our cart called Princeton New. First choice was we exported those to our spreadsheet, or we sent them to Rocket Print and Mail under Send Mailers, and that went off to their website, and we could do postcards, letters, or snap-aparts there. Or, this is my favorite, under More. When you click on More, you can print mailing labels. Now, this could be interesting. So let's go to print mailing labels. When I go to print mailing labels, I have a few choices here. I can either go to the property owner or the current resident. And I always ask this question in class, which choice would you want? And rather than everybody yelling and screaming out to me right now, I will give you the answer. It's property owner. You want to go where the tax bill is being sent, the property owner. Property address or mailing address? We want to be in the mailing address. The owner mailing address is, once again, where the tax bill will be sent. I now have 4 choices of Avery labels. Excuse me. I don't care which one because I'm not going to use them. I'll show you what I do with them. I click on the second one, just because, property owner, mailing address, Avery label, print labels, and it's going to open up. By default, I want to use my Adobe Reader. I click on that, and I'm now going to be able to print 47. I've got labels, 47 labels. So here is what I have done successfully, and here is what I suggest you think about. We tend to open our mail in 2 piles. We have A pile mail, which is the important stuff, the bills, the payments, the mortgage, the rent, whatever, car payments. The A pile is the stuff we need to open. The B pile stuff we usually open over a wastebasket. I'm sure you're probably shaking your head and say, yep, that's pretty much me too. We want to be in the A pile when we do direct marketing. And here is the almost assured way of being in the A pile. Usually ask this question, but I'll give you the answer. It's the handwritten envelope. That's usually the first tip. So if we have labels, we need to hand address 47 envelopes. How long will that take you? Well, if you're going to get a nice commission on a couple of these, or man, if you're really lucky, all 47, does it matter how long it would take? Even if you have to hire the kids or grandkids or whomever you're using, start printing your envelopes. You have a great target marketing funnel to start with. You have 47 high to medium prospects. So you do a couple at a time. Just do it. And the second key here is live stamp. The bulk mail thing, the meter stamp, that kind of makes people think it's probably an ad, so it may not be an A pile. Maybe it's kind of maybe an A pile. But I want to be assured to get my envelope open. So handwritten envelope, live stamp, will guarantee you're going to be in the A pile. Now the rest is up to you. You want to be in that, when they open that envelope, they want a compelling headline. They want something that's going to grab their attention, so they probably won't read it right then and there, but they want to save it. So when they have some downtime, they can get into their mail and say, you know what, I need to read this. Now, I would not necessarily say, hey, by the way, I find your high probability from Remine. I would, if you don't know how to copyright a really good marketing letter, there are many, many sources out there. I would do a Google search. I would search on high probability real estate marketing letters, and then just do some research. Learn how to copyright. If you're doing direct marketing, you really want to learn how to copyright, because that is critical to getting action on everything you are doing. Hang on a second, we got a question here. Can you modify the save search after it is in the carts? Can you modify the save search? Yeah, once you have it in there, you can always bring other properties in or create more carts too. That's kind of what I do, Eric. I just add just different carts, and I can also delete properties that I'm not interested in. So that's all just pretty much getting in there. And if you remember, we were in here are our 47 thing. Let me get rid of this. We were in our 47. So you might want to start manipulating these for whatever reason, maybe not include this one when you do that. So that is how you can start playing around with your cards. So we have our mailing labels. We know how to get them into carts, and we now know how to do some important things that will help you create. Can I print a customized letter and use it? Can you print a customized letter? Karen, you could probably do that if you want to use your Excel sheet, or if you want to work with Rocket Print and Mail, do a mail merge with Word. Yes, you can do all of that. Not right from here, but you'd have to use another third-party program, such as you do a Word doc, do something along those lines to bring in that customized letter. But you at least have the data that you can start with. Absolutely. Okay, cool. So let's do a couple of more things. So we have our target market. We have 47 properties. So let's put that one aside. Let's go back to our search screen. And now this question always comes up, and I'm going to do it real slow because I want to show you something. Remember, we had our 47 results. We had all these filters, but we want to start and do another search, completely different search. I want to go to clear all filters. To my right of my 47 results, I'm clearing all filters. When I do that, they all disappear. So now I'm back to my original 3,361 results. So let's pick another area. Let's go into, we'll go Hamilton, just because. Pick an area of Hamilton. If I spelled it, it would be better yet. Hamilton. Now, sometimes it's not going to give you like a neighborhood or subdivision, so you're going to want to see, for instance, Hamilton Square comes up. It doesn't say Hamilton, but Hamilton Square. So I can put a zip code in there, but let's just pick Hamilton Square, and I'll show you how to handle this problem. So once again, to get rid of the drop down, click anywhere in the white space, and it's kind of giving me an outline of what it sees as Hamilton Square. Let's get rid of that filter. I'm going to clear that filter and remove that outline, and as soon as I do that, it's going to give me a large map number for everything I am viewing. Yeah, 42,000 results. Remember now, I don't really want all 42,000. So let's go over to, let's go Robbinsville Township. I'm zooming in a little bit. I'm just trying to get to a couple thousand. Let's see what I have here. 24,000 is way too many, so I can hit my plus sign. And I have 3692. That's not bad. I have 3,692 properties in this view area. Remember, these little blue circles are the number of parcels. If you added those all up, you'd have pretty close to your 3692. So the next thing, let's go back to our steps again. We picked an area. The next step will be status. I want properties that are off market. I'm going for something different here now. I'm going for off market properties in Robbinsville Township. I check off market, and I come up with 3,555 properties that are off market to get rid of the drop down anywhere in the white space. Now what do I want to add? Now let me think about this. Okay, the first thing I did was I was looking for people who have owned their properties for at least 5 years or more. How about if we now want to find some potential empty nesters, people who have owned their property for a minimum of 20 years. Let's go down to our filter. Let's do ownership time. And we have one that's pretty easy. It's already here, 20 years or more. So let's click on that filter. Or if you want it to be 25, you do that. It would be 30, whatever you want to do. But I'm going to apply the 20 years plus filter from ownership time to my 3,559 properties in my map area. Let's see how that affects the numbers. It goes to, cuts that more than in half, more than half. I have 1,439 results of people in this viewing area that have owned their property for at least 20 plus years. Pretty interesting. Let's apply another one that we like, home equity. Remember now, we've got people with a little bit not as high of a price range, so let's maybe put about 50,000. They have at least $50,000 in equity. They've been at their property for at least 20 years. They're not using their home as an ATM machine where they're constantly refinancing and pulling cash out. So at least $50,000, and applying that to our 1439 results, we come up with, bumped it down by a couple hundred. So we have 1,272 results. Let's continue. Let's go down to our other choice, which is mortgage age. I still like that a lot. And let's pick 5 years again. They haven't touched a publicly recorded mortgage in 5 years. And let's just pick 6 years. It really doesn't matter what number. So we do that. Let's click that. One, by the way, has no mortgage. That's another one you could pick. But let's say they haven't touched their mortgage in 5 years. I have 488 results. So let's apply our self-score now. Now, can you go right to the self-score right away? Absolutely. But I still have to narrow it down because this gives me a higher probability. So remember, let's recap. We picked Hamilton. We zoomed into an area. They're all off market. They've owned their property for at least 20 plus years. They have at least $50,000 in home equity. They haven't touched their publicly recorded mortgage in 6 plus years. And we now are about to apply our 2 self scores. The first one is high. That is a 0 to 6 month high frame probability that somebody or more than someone in these 488 results could be selling with a high probability. And let's see what we have. 33. How's that? 33 high probability. Whoop, I just changed my map area. That kind of screwed it up. Let's see what I got here. Whoops. But you see what I did? I accidentally hit the map area. And I got more results. But let's just kind of stay. So we have 44 results, just to kind of show you. I mean, the concept is still there. So I have 44 results using the filters. They're in this area. They've owned 20 plus years, have at least $50,000 in equity. They haven't touched a mortgage in 6 plus years. And by just applying the self score of high, I have 44 results. Let's also apply medium, because I can really build a nice marketing machine here. And medium would be, add to my 44, it's going to give me 112 results of people who have owned their property for at least 20 plus years and fit all the other criteria. And all 112 are over here along the side. I can then build a cart, put them in there and do my marketing, manipulating with my spreadsheet, do my mail merge, customize letters, send it off to Rocket Print and Mail, or create labels and do that. But now that I have these, let's add a couple of other interesting filters. So these people have owned their property for 20 plus years. But here's another one that's really interesting. Under self score, absentee. When I click on absentee, I see corporate, owner, occupant. I also see absentee in-state, which means they all live in New Jersey, but they do not live in the property. Let's click that as a filter. Excuse me. Absentee, apply the in-state filter. I now have 4 results. So these folks are non-owner occupants who live in New Jersey. Well, now I'm even more intrigued. Let's go to absentee. And while I have absentee in-state, why not pick absentee out-of-state? So the first batch we put into a filter that they are empty nesters, we can call that one. But look at this one. We can call these non-owner occupied, and maybe they are investors, which would be a high probability that they don't live in the property. They both either live in New Jersey or don't live in New Jersey. That part doesn't matter, but I have 4 high probability non-owner occupants who have owned their property at least 20 years, home equity of at least 50,000, and they haven't touched the mortgage in 6 plus years, and they are both high and medium probability filters. Let's talk about these, because this is something that's really intriguing if you don't know about this. These folks are investors. They don't live in their property. That's more than likely. I mean, they could certainly have a relative living in there, but let's assume they're investors, they're non-owner occupants. What does that mean by having an ownership time of at least 20 years? Well, a couple of things. If you've ever worked with real estate investors, one of the main reasons they invest in real estate is because it has something that's a tax benefit called depreciation. What happens to depreciation over the years is it starts minimizing, it diminishes after a certain curve. And usually it's maybe around 15, 18, 20, 22 years. It starts becoming not as valuable because they've used all the depreciation. Now that's a pro and con situation, because when they go to sell this property, many times they have to do what's called recapture some of that, if not all of it, and pay a high capital gains tax. So that could be something like 30%. So I'll get your question in a moment then. Let me just go over this. So we've got some non-owner occupied sellers who potentially would like to sell, but they're going to get banged on taxes. So let's assume they have a $300,000 property. Let's assume they've owned it for 30 years. And let's assume by the time all the dust settles, there's maybe $200,000 in net profit. So if they sold that property today as a non-owner occupant, and after they wrote everything off and they recaptured, they did all the fancy stuff that they had a real high-powered accountant help them with, they still could have $200,000 net profit. They still could have a 30%, which would be $60,000. That's a taxable event that they would owe the IRS. Well, that's a turnoff for many, many investors. So they're just going to say, I'm not interested in selling right now. I think I'll just keep it. Well, here is where you come into play with your very clever knowledge of the IRS tax code, which means not a whole lot. But if you don't understand it, who cares? You just have to understand one key element of the IRS tax code. It's something called a 1031 tax deferred exchange, like kind exchange. What the heck does that mean? In the mid-'80s, Reagan was president, and the real estate market was in shambles. It was really chaotic. Well, Congress, Senate, and the IRS decided to come up with a clever code to help real estate investors. They created, and it's still in existence, this 1031 like-kind tax-deferred exchange. What does that mean? That means if an investor has owned a property for at least 2 years or more, and they go to sell it, and here's the if they exchange that property, they exchange that equity for another like-kind investment, which simply means they would sell this property through the normal channels. You get the listing, you sell it, you get paid out of it. All of the expenses are covered, the transfer tax, repairs, whatever, as long as the seller doesn't touch 1 penny of that net profit, and it is being held in escrow by a tax-deferred intermediary. Sounds really complicated, but there are many of those around. They are all IRS approved. They charge about $2,000 to the seller. You hand over the agreement of sale when you get it to the intermediary. They then keep the seller in full compliance. They do all the work for you. And then when it comes to closing, you get paid. Everybody gets taken care of. Now the seller has that net profit, those net proceeds in the intermediary's escrow. And guess what you do next? You have up to 12 months to go find them a second property. And sometimes you can delay it, sometimes it's less. It just depends on what happens. But you will be in full compliance and make 2 commissions. The first one you sold as the listing agent. The second one you will get as the buyer's agent when they need to find that second property. And they will find that second property because they don't want to pay those $60,000 in taxable income. So there's some marketing you can use. Do a Google search on 1031 tax deferred exchange. Check intermediaries. It's not that complicated, but it's a great way to talk to investors who have owned property for quite a term and they want to sell it, but they don't want to pay taxes. So that is kind of the short version. Let me go into the chat and let's just go on. Did you mean no occupant owner? Yeah, non-owner occupied owner. That's correct. Non-owner occupied owner, Albert. And good. All right, cool. I'm glad you guys like it. Any questions so far about a couple of things that I just went over? I know it's a lot of data, a lot of information. Some of this stuff is just experience. You're not going to find anywhere else, unfortunately. We don't record these, but you all have my email address. If you come into something that's really crazy, email me, and I'll gladly either try to help you out or refer you to somebody who hopefully can help you. But these are key things that you will get as just thinking outside the box. You know, this class, we offer this at least once or twice, at least more than that, a couple times a month. Karen, is there a filter for vacant properties? Let's take a look. Great question. Okay, let's talk about filters. So Karen asked, is there a filter for vacant properties? Well, if you look at these filters along here, let's see what we have. We have, before I get into that, Karen, I will answer that, but I want to show you one other filter, which I also like. I'm going to clear all filters. Let's just clear the filters just because I want to show you something that's really interesting. So we're going to start from scratch again. And I'm just going to pick, let's pick East Windsor, just because it's not too far from many of you. Let's see if I have East Windsor. Okay, do I have East Windsor? Let's just try this. And I may be off, but I just want to show you something. And it doesn't really matter. Yeah, good. I have East Windsor. Perfect. Okay, you see East Windsor Township. And I have kind of an outline of East Windsor Township. And I have 285, but I'm going to clear that filter. That's not enough sample for what I want to show you. So I'm going to back out. Go out a little bit more. So you can see I'm in East Windsor Township, and I have, let's see how many results I have here. Back out a little bit more, just to get a really large, I want at least a couple thousand at least. Good, perfect. I have 1,852. I originally typed East Windsor. It gave me kind of an area, but I'm zooming out. My mapping area has 1,852 results. I'm going to apply just one filter, which is pretty cool. I'm going down to, let's start from scratch. Pretty much this is default. When you log on, you're going to see ownership time, etc. So going down to the very last two arrows down below, you're going to see something called distressed deals. Let's click on that. Let's see what happens. What does that mean? When I click on distressed deals, I get a pop-up, and I see 4 additional layers. The first one is Liz Pendens. And I asked this question in class, and a lot of folks know what it is and some don't. But a Liz Pendens is, I guess, the Latin term for litigation, lawsuit. Someone has filed a lawsuit against the property owner for a multitude of reasons. It could be as simple as they built a deck, they didn't get paid, so they filed a lawsuit. It's attached to the property. They applied a mechanical system, air conditioning, heating unit, and they didn't get paid. Or it's a lender. Somebody owed money. They didn't get paid. So a Liz Pendens will create a distressed situation. The next one, of course, is notice of default. That's pretty obvious. A lender, mortgage company usually, has filed a notice of default because they haven't gotten paid. The next one is real obvious. The sheriff is at the doorstep. There's a notice of foreclosure. So we have 3 high-powered distressed deal filters. The fourth one, if you've never heard of a trustee sale, it's probably the reason why is because Pennsylvania is not a trust deed state, New Jersey is not a trust deed state, and neither is Delaware. There are about half the states in the country are trust deed states. And let me give you the difference. If you live in California, which is a trust deed state, and you are foreclosed upon, you will be out of your house in 3 months and 21 days, pretty much to the date. That's the amount of time you have in a trust deed state. In a judiciary state like New Jersey, Pennsylvania, etc., you have many, many more months. You can fight it, you can argue, you can delay it. That's a judiciary sale compared to a trustee sale. We are not involved, so we don't care about this fourth filter. Remember, Remine is all across the country. That's why it's there. But let's apply these 3 filters to our 1,852 results. Let's see what happens to that number. We have 1 result. Real interesting, right? And there is the person right here. There's something going on. It's a low cell score, but I just wanted to show you how by applying these filters, now when the market's really hot, like it's been, you're not going to see too many of these because obviously if there's equity, these people are going to be selling their property and getting out from under. But if it's when the market changes, which it always does, the pendulum right now is pent up demand, but this one was a foreclosure sale. When you start going to different areas, you will notice usually the trustee name is the attorney. Good luck dealing with them. My suggestion is when you start dealing with foreclosures, it's always best to go to the borrower, the owner. They sometimes will at least get their head out of the sand and do things. But that is pretty much how you find distressed situations using that 1 filter. East Windsor may not have been a good area, but let's go to Trenton just because. Let's hit Trenton. Let's see what happens when we apply that filter. Let's see how many more situations we get. There you go, 69 results. So now if you're working with investors and they want to be in an area that may have higher probability, you now have 69. And all I do is I applied this 1 filter, distressed deals, 69 results. So play around with that filter. It's pretty fascinating what you will come across, not only for investors, but for yourself to list properties. If they're distressed, some equity. Here's one right here. Look at this one. High is a high probability. It's off the market. It's 213 roughly value. Let's look at this. Let's see how much equity they have, because that's the first thing you want to look at, right? Distressed situation. Not a lot of equity, but if it really is valued correctly at 213 and change, you got $43,000 in equity. If that's all that's against this person does not want to lose that $43,000. So as I said, many, many times they have their head in the sand, and this may have gone to foreclosure sale, it may not. So you probably have to contact the owner, the borrower, find out how to get a hold of this person. Remember, it's on the do not call list. I would not deal with that. Let's take a look here under associated people, just out of curiosity. There is the contact you can see. There are some email addresses, but why not send them a letter? Hand addressed envelope, live stamp. Thinking of selling your house? We can sell it fast, et cetera, et cetera. Let me take this question. We got a question in the chat room. What is a cash buyer's filter? That's a great question, Amy. A lot of investors like to deal with people who have paid cash for their property. I think the psychology there is, and it probably makes sense, if there's no mortgage on a property and it's all cash, there's a lot more room to wiggle. If you're trying to, find properties, number one, a little bit less than market. If there's no mortgage is the key. So that's what the cash buyer would probably be. It was paid for by cash, and based on the last public record information, there's no mortgage against it. So hopefully that helps you there. All right, so Karen asked vacant properties. So here's what you can do. Go to advanced. Let's see if vacant is one of our filters. Hang on one second. You're welcome. Okay, let's go over here. So Karen asked vacant properties. Let's go see if that's a filter we have in Remine. As we go down here, we can see that we don't have it in the building type, the absentee ownership. Let's see if we can add that. Let me just keep looking here. Let's see if add filters is one. May not be, Karen. But I can also show you, let me just see one other thing here. Yeah, it doesn't appear to be here unless I missed it. Let me go back again. Let's go back over here. Let's take a look. While I'm in this, I want to share with you one more thing because it brought up another idea. Let's see. Structure. Yeah. Sometimes they're hidden, you got to kind of look here. There's building types. Let's see. No, I don't see it. Keep looking, but I don't see it. But here, how about expired listings? Let's talk about this. Let's just clear the filters. And I'll show you, Karen, I'll show you where you can find vacant properties in Bright before we leave. But let's go over to here first. We are in advanced search. Remember that button? If you missed that button, let's go back here. You're in your search field, and you go to advanced over here. When you get to advanced, it's spinning around doing its thing here. You go, let's say you're looking for expired listings. Now, obviously, you can do that in Bright, but you can also apply your filters here with, you know what, let's just throw something. Karen, now land would be, that's not going to really help you. You want vacant houses, right? You don't want just vacant land. I thought of something, I was always flashing. Okay, so let's say we have a listing, status. So you could do, first what you'd want to do, sorry about this, let's go back to our filter, status. Let's click on expired. So you're looking for, you pick your area, and I just had me in Trenton, it's fine. Status is expired. We have 263 results. So for your information, this goes back 6 months. So all of these 263 results are pulled in from Bright, and they go back 0 to 180, which is our default in Bright. But if you want to apply an advanced filter, let's say you don't want to go back 6 months. You want to find the most recent expired listings. So what you can do is go to status, and let's start with a start date. Let's go from April 1st, and let's go to the end date, which is today. So let's go to 21st. Let's see in this time frame how many results we have. We have 18 results. So they started, the status was here, but let's do one more thing here board. Let's go back to, it's going to take a little window here to see something, see if it changes. 5 results. So in this week, from April 1st to April 5th, there were 5 expired listings. So you can kind of narrow it down. So let's say you want to go, rather than April 1st, we just want to start at the 12th. Let's do the start of the 12th and end at the 12th. End date today. So you have 10 results. Hang on a second, sorry. You have 8 results from the 12th. From the 12th through the 21st. So you can play around with these advanced filters to do that. So hopefully that will help you. Karen, you've got my imagination going here. I want to see something here. She asked about vacant properties. Let me just check something here first. In public records, let me just see something here. Do we have a vacant? I know I saw vacant. Hang on one second here. Where's my vacant? Here it is right here. Under property class, Karen, if you've not found this in public records, so all I did was I searched, I went to public records, and then in property class, we do have a vacant property class. So if that helps you, I couldn't find it in Remine, but I knew we had it in our public records. So hopefully that will give you an additional way to search for properties that are vacant in your area that you're looking for. And once again, search, and you're going into public records, and then you want to go to property class, and that would be vacant. While we have a little bit of time, while I'm in public records, let me give you a couple of other things that you may not have been aware of. Any questions so far on what I've been doing? I know I've given you a lot of data, a lot of things to work with, but it's a powerful, powerful tool. Let me recap and remind you before I jump out of there. First thing you want to do is to get to Remine. Let's go back. Let me X out of here for a minute, and we're going to go into search. We go to Remine Pro at the bottom, and that will take you into Remine's main portal. And usually the daily is where you wind up. And play around with these cards if you like. You can move them, you can add them, you can do all kinds of things with both the gear and these little dots. I like to do a card. My suggestion is build a card first and then search an area that you want to search. And if you remember, all we did was we just kind of picked in either, you can pick an area code, an address, a city, a zip code, a neighborhood, et cetera, et cetera. So that is all pretty interesting. And then play around with all these filters. To clear filters, you have that little clear filter button at the top. And then apply all of these different layers of algorithms and things like that. We have a question here, hang on. Before you go, what is the stat for low cell score? The stat is anything over 12 months, Karen. That's what they're telling. So bottom line is, you know, if you have the high and the medium, spend time with that. Low means anything that's probably not going to happen within the next year, 2 or 3. That's a great question. A lot of people ask a question, but I pretty much ignore it because if I can play with high and medium, I think that's probably more powerful. And by the way, they have a DocuSign type process within Remine, things that you can do, electronic signatures. So play around with that. Remember, YouTube channel, Remine. They have 30-something videos on how to work with them. They also have ongoing webinars, I think once or twice a week at remine.com. Register for that. Let's go back into Bright, just for the heck of it. We're going to finish off with a couple things here. We go to search. We go to public records. And I like to always like to clear my screen before I do anything. While we were talking about investment properties or properties that maybe were distressed, if you are aware, there is a way to search for properties that are in foreclosure or that were taken back by lenders and or entities. For instance, I always like to, when I work with investors, they always say, hey, can you get me like maybe some HUD-owned properties or some VA-owned properties that were taken in foreclosure? There are minimal now, obviously, because the market has been so strong in the last couple of years. But if you're searching in our public records, let me give you a tip. If you do not know the official name of HUD, you're not going to find anything. So if you just typed in HUD for the corporate name under owner name in public records, you will find nothing. The official name of HUD is Secretary of Housing and Urban Development. So secretary, if I can spell it, is, I can't spell it, doesn't look like it, secretary. Secretary is the official name. So if you just typed in secretary, believe it or not, and let's just pick a municipality. Let's just pick Trenton. I'm just going to do it just because. Trenton. When I pick that, I see 190 matches that have the title of secretary. Now, the interesting thing, not only is HUD the Secretary of Housing and Urban Development, but so is the Veterans Administration. It's the Secretaries of Veterans Administration or Veterans Affairs. So what you want to do is pick a municipality or a zip code or an area and then type secretary and then current owner, yes, because you want them to be the current owner. And when you do that, you will see, let's see what happens here. Owner occupied, no, because I don't want anybody that's living there. So let's see what happens when we click on results. We have 5 matches. And lo and behold, every one of these has Secretary of Housing and Urban Development or Secretary of the VA. So that is how you find HUD-owned and VA-owned properties in Bright's public records. So that is pretty powerful. So that's just one little tip on how to use public records to find additional things. And once again, you get into public records by doing search, public records, and play around with that. One last thing that is a little bit off course, but while we're talking about sellers, let me give you one tip for buyers. If you're looking for potential buyer prospects using Bright, and this is a clever way, we go to search and we're going to residential lease. I took a complete 90-degree turn here, didn't I? But I'm now in MLS, search, residential lease. And let's talk about what we're looking for here. We are looking for people who are renting and with the potential of wanting to purchase a property at the end of their lease. And it's pretty obvious that usually a residential lease is 12 months. So what we want to find in search residential lease, and I'm going to pick an area, and let's see, let's pick East Windsor again. So I'm in East Windsor, in Mercer. That's the first thing I do, residential lease, but I don't want coming soons. I don't want active leases. I want closed. I want people who have bid in their lease in East Windsor for at least 6 months to 9 months, because they're coming now either at the halfway point or towards the end of their 12-month lease. So by default, you will see it 0 to 6 months. I want to go 6 months, 180, to maybe 270, 6 to 9 months. So look at this. They live in East Windsor. They've closed on a rental. The last 6 to 9 months is left. I have 22 matches. Let's click on results. Let's see what happens. Interesting. When I click on my results, I obviously see the MLS number, the close, the address, the city, etc., and the listing office name, but I don't see the tenant's name, and I'm not going to see the tenant's name. I don't know who the tenant is unless I was involved in the transaction. But I do see some interesting things here. I see some prices. I see that this is obviously annually. Somebody clocked it in annually, but you can see the very first one. These people are paying $2,800 a month for a detached house at this address. Now, all things being equal, how's their credit? How's their job history? How's everything else? But let's assume that maybe with some creative financing such as FHA with minimal down payment, VA with 0 down, and some other local and state programs that require 0 down and minimal down, we can maybe get these people into some sort of housing. So let's take this first one. $2,800 per month they are renting, paying for rent. Now, will they find the same type of house? Probably not when we go to buy it, but we certainly can get them into something, and the benefits of home ownership is all up to you to sell that. But let's take this $2,800 a month payment. What do we do with this? We have a tool under finance called an amortization schedule. It sounds complicated, but look how simple it is. We know they're paying $2,800 a month, right? So let's click on amortization schedule. When I click on that, it brings up this easy to fill in field at the top. All I care about is the top portion. So if they're paying $2,800 a month, let's assume they're comfortable paying that. We have to back out some things because we want to get down to the basic principal and interest payment to see how much they could qualify for. So with a $2,800 a month payment, let's immediately back out $800 a month, assuming property taxes. So we have $2,000 net now. So it was $2,800. We've taken away $800. We have a net of $2,000. All things being equal, let's just back out another $100 for insurance. So we now have a net payment of $1,900. That would be a principal and interest payment theoretically. On a $2,800 a month, that would include principal, interest, tax, and insurance. Let's assume the interest rate right now would be 3.5. And it could be higher, it could be lower, but 3.5 on a 30-year mortgage will be our annual interest rate. And how many payments are in a 30-year mortgage? If you guessed 360, you're absolutely correct. So let's recap. We started out with $2,800. We backed out $800 a month for taxes, $100 a month for insurance. We're at $1,900. We're using 3.5 annual interest rate. We're calculating over a 30-year mortgage term. Let's see how much they theoretically could borrow as a principal loan. We calculate that. If you can see, it was $423,120.47. Do you think you could find them something for a $423,000 mortgage? Now remember, the credit, the income, the job, all that crazy stuff. But what a great place to start working with potential buyers who could be dying to buy something and watching this market run away from them. So you've got some real interesting things to look at. So to recap, we're going back to our screen where we were. Here are all of the addresses. Handwrite the letter. Dear future homeowner. Boom, live envelope, live stamp. My name is so-and-so. I specialize in this area, East Windsor, Cranberry. And I would love to help you find a property if you're thinking of selling. I have some magic, whatever. It's great ways to help you and work with your lender, work with the person that helps you pre-approve people, sit on those pre-approvals, make sure you understand what he or she is doing every time they talk to these type of people. And maybe you need to put them in a 6 to a 12-month funnel where they have to update their credit. Maybe they need more time at their job. Maybe they need to acquire a gift. You will be a hero once you start finding a couple of these people. They will tell everybody about you that you are incredible. You've helped them find a home of their dreams, or at least you start them on the path. So hopefully that has helped you. Do we have any questions? Any comments? Was this helpful? If you would chat in the top chat box, I would really appreciate that. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Anything else, gang? Was it helpful? Good, good, good. I will be hopefully seeing you all soon in person. If not, I will be doing another one of these probably the next week or so. So keep your eyes open. You all found out under support, under training. That's where I am usually going to be for both core, and also you're invited to my Bucks County class too. If you happen to log on to Bucks County, you will see I'm doing things there. In fact, let me just give you a little tip here. Under training, I think I have some space for next week. I'm doing CNAs. You are all more than welcome to attend that. Of course, there's no charge to do that. Under Bucks County Association of Realtors, let's see how much room I have left. Join in. There's 33 spaces. Learn how to do a CNA, and I'll give you some really great tips on doing that also. So that is next, what is that, the 22nd? It's tomorrow. Next week. It's tomorrow. That's how crazy it's been. So if you've got time tomorrow from 9:30 to 11, jump on in. There's 33 seats available. I wish you all the very, very best. I really love doing this, and I hope that you got some great ideas from it, inspired. Stay safe, stay healthy, stay happy, and I look forward to seeing you all soon. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Natasha. Thanks, Elizabeth, Albert, Taco, everybody. Thanks, gang. Great day. Thanks, Karen.
Wow, this was a great training. Is it still on?
Hey,
Or is that it? Or is that done? What is that?
yeah, I think that was it. I think Tiffany might have stepped off
Oh,
her
okay.
computer.
That was an interesting training. Wow.
Yeah, that was good.
Hmm.
It's another way to to get other clients, buyer clients or seller clients. So yeah, that was good.
That's right. Yeah. Especially the last part that he showed with the
Yeah,
uh, people who are renting out, and that was interesting, really.
yeah, yeah, that was good. That was a good training.
So, are we
Uh,
signing out now, or what do we do?
I don't know. I don't know if Tiffany's coming back
Because now there's the other one, right, with Frank.
today. Which one's the other one?
Oh God, how do I make this small? Hold on. There is one. I'll tell you. Um, hold on. What time is it? There is that ALC meeting at 1. Oh, it already started. Yeah, let me get into that then.
Oh, you gonna go on that?
Yeah, you're not going into it?
No, not today. I have to get ready because I have like a seller's lead, so I'm gonna have to get ready for that.
Oh, cool. Very good. Great. Good luck.
Yeah, thank you, thank you. So yeah, I'm a little nervous. I don't know what to do. I'm actually hopefully getting some help with Tiffany today to get ready for that.
Oh, go ahead. Go talk to her. Then I'll sign out. Okay, great. Okay.
All right, Jashir, you have a good day.
You too. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Dude,